I just looked at my wrist, I got time today. Fuck it, I'm crossing the line today. The hate be so real, the love be fake. Be bumping their gums and bumping my tape. Don't go against me, they ask for my help. Go get out your feelings and get it yourself. Might got the same shoes, but you ain't gon' step. That shit that you just put out, you could've kept. Yep, she got a nigga, he got a shirt. Why? You can't compete when you can't compare. She ate the dick through my underwear. Got up and got herself out of there. I see they put me on memes and things. Don't speak on my life without knowing the real. 8 figures a year, what it cost me to live. Don't hold it, just say what you feel. But watch your mouth, far fly at your bitch. To a place that she didn't know exists. Mediterranean water my wrist. Keeping them pissed how I'm talking my shit. 6 figure check for a show, man, I'm lit. Let's celebrate in my bag legit. These niggas with me with whatever I'm with. Didn't know who did, he got everybody hit. Bitch, I don't like niggas, I don't like bitches, I don't like nobody. We can get gangster, we can keep it cordial. How you wanna go back? I don't backtrack, man, fuck that. I don't miss nobody. I don't miss nothing. Left it on scene, I ain't right back. I don't trust nobody.
Turn this motherfucker up.
I got time today.
Whoa.
Fucking, I'm crossing the line today.
Yeah.
Bitches will cry and be lying in your
face.
Look at the nuts, gotta know how they
yeah.
Money one straight, she won't be here today. Ain't in mind, sure know what to say. You ain't me, so it's hard to relate. What? How much cash I fuck off every day? Big bag. Don't play with me, baby. Don't play with your pussy. You see them in person, these niggas be shook. $100 it cost you a Quavo to book me. I'm worth it, the proof in the pudding. Surrounded by bitch farm. I'm looking like William, but they ain't my girlfriend. Girl, I'ma spin on your block back to back when they finish. It look like the world end. I ain't asked for it, they did it to me. What? Niggas exposing their hands for free. Get caught in the middle of this bullseye. You got hit, but we were targeting heat. I'm popping my shit with a capital.
Man, y'all ready to turn up today?
Might be ugly, but my bitch prep.
Man, like, boy, share the video.
I don't like niggas.
Nah. Whoa.
We can get gangster, we can keep it cordial.
Yeah, man, we about to go through that tonight.
I don't miss nobody. Left it on scene, I ain't right back. I don't trust nobody. I just looked at my wrist, I got time today. Fuck it, I'm crossing the line today.
Yeah.
I just looked at my wrist, I got time today. Fuck it, I'm crossing the line today.
Hey, shit. What I tell you, nigga, when I come out of jail, what I was gonna do? I was gonna start digging into these niggas.
Hey, bang, like, boy, share the video. Say, man, it's up there. I'm feeling good today. Yes, sir. What up, Birdo?
Everybody keep your eyes on the prize, cause the ride get tricky. So you got some niggas on your side that say they're your friends, but in real life, they're your enemies. Then you got some motherfuckers that say they're your enemies, but in real life, they eyes is on your money. See, your enemies that say it's true, but in real life, them niggas are be snitches. It's a dirty game, y'all. Y'all got to be careful about who you fuck with and who you don't fuck with, cause the shit get wild, y'all. Keep your mind on your riches, baby. Keep your mind on your riches. 911, it's an emergency. Y'all tried to murder me from hood to the birds. Every one of you niggas heard me shit. I'm legendary, nigga, scary, and paralyzed. Nothing more I desire than a liar. Count down. My mama told me when I was a cheat, such a big motherfucker, why these devils set me free? I proceed to make a shit when I deliver. Criminal niggas from a worldwide mob figure. Thug niggas from everywhere, Mr. Machiavelli. Niggas is waiting for some thug shit, that's what they tell. From any rumors, what I'm infinite, emo outlaw. Switching up on you ordinary bitches like I'm south when you get left. In every breath, breathe until the moment I'm deceased to be enough to pull it all and had to be. I put the crap and I start again. Eternally, I live in sin until the moment that they let me breathe again. The heart to the heart for the night. I was in every hand. Then my 5,000 hours. Whichever one was in it. My life. I wasn't like shit. Look at me, I'm all my business. You guys see how I was. I had my fist up ready. Motherfucker, put your hand down. My lyrical verse with so much pain to some niggas it hurts my guns bust. If you ain't wanna bust, it gets worse. Bitch niggas get their eyes swole and fly low to my homicidal outlaw. And 5-0, get your lights on.
Man, what's up with it, goddammit? Man, if y'all don't turn this motherfucker up, man.
I'm having my way. Said I ain't having his way. Way I ain't having his way.
Yeah.
And like the third me go out. Take it. What?
Hey, man, what's up there?
What else are they gonna play?
What else they gonna play?
Niggas won't take it. Hey,
however nigga wanna take it.
Said I ain't having his way. Way I ain't having his way. And like the third me go out. Take what? Hey. Yeah. Now that I'm picking it through, I just say fell in love cause I'm way too awake. And she try fucking a rapper to break on my heart, but my heart doesn't break. Soon as I link with these niggas, they feelings are written all over their face. What?
Okay, great. I'm in the back room with Wally's. I spent 30,000 on somebody's grapes. We done did so many pull-ups on niggas. No wonder we getting in shape. Too busy backing my words of what actions to ever go front of your face. What? Hey, shit done changed.
Shit done changed.
Talk to me different when they see my pistol from Lucian Grange. Told myself that I would get through this verse and I'm not gonna mention the plane. But look at the plane. The fuck are we saying? Yeah. What? Fuck are we saying? Big 81, but I don't own a Harley. I ride a Mercedes with shame. Hey, it's me and Lil Harley. We wrecking this shit, then we about to go link with the game. Hey, and unlike the clock on the wall like your mama house, I do not have time to hang. Please don't reach out to me, think watching too much of Stephen and got to me versus 2 E's. I'm serving them up by the threes. I'm playing pool and the pool just connects to the beach. I've been too solid to ever have stripes on my sneaks. You get what I mean? Back in the day, my dogs was putting their balls in the pockets of all of the fiends. And what? That was back in the day.
You know I was you leaving, keeping it real every day. It ain't easy. Sorry, this ain't on, this is peach. Gotta keep it carbon in my peach. Picking calling Mari out my teeth, babe. This is deep. Gotta keep it carbon in my beat. Picking calling Mari out my teeth, babe. Why you putting forges on the Jeep? I keep spilling coffee on my Jeep. I don't like you talking, I'm gon' speak, babe. You know I needed you, why would you leave? And keeping it real every day, it ain't easy. Cardigan swell, they come out next season. Deja Ray, would you just stay with me, please? I'm a blessed with mama like she sneezes. For the triple double for my knees. Said I just bought a rover for no reason. I'm a hustle race, I can't even leave. Talked up in the pen when I ain't pee. The water dripping off me, Uncle Fiend. I love my Uncle E, I Uncle Bean. I love my Auntie Peace, not Auntie Dean. It's blowing all this money cause it's free. Scamming in Miami by the beach. Telling on your homies that ain't.
Man, y'all ready to turn up in this motherfucker? Hey.
Gotta keep a carbon in my reach. Picking color mommy on my teeth.
Babe.
Why you putting 40s on the Jeep? I keep spilling coffee on my Jeep.
Hey, y'all bang the like button out there, goddamn. Drop some that road. We finna get busy. We gonna run through there, man.
Check your savings, eating on the face. You say, I've been smoking coffee with the weed. I'ma keep you healthy, selling pig. Devil wanna sign me, what's the plea? Devil lines on me, I'm from 18, Louis V. Peach color blanket.
Dogging on these bitches, I got rabies. I told her face me. A lot of money lately.
I hope you like a bracelet. Shout to say I'm handsome
for Indian.
I just read the spider for the week. Lying on my dick, but it ain't shrinking. Sorry, this ain't on, this is beat. Gotta keep a carbon in my reach. You can call it Mari on my teeth, baby.
Long-winded, running through this.
Hey, we about to turn up after this here. Let me get set up.
But setting every goal high.
Let me set my shit up.
1,000 burpees on the path to my own destruction or success. But what is a mistake without the lesson? See, the best teacher in life is your own experience. None of us know who we are until we fail. They say every man is defined by his reaction to any given situation. Well, who would you want to define you? Someone else or yourself? Whatever you do, homie, give your heart to it. And stay strong. Stay strong.
With me and you know. Yeah. Look, a lot of niggas fail, but I won't. A lot of niggas fall, but I cope. A lot of niggas gone, but I'm home. A lot of niggas off, but I'm on. A lot of niggas lost on this road. Couple niggas gave up they goal. Gang of niggas traded they soul. With me, I'm standing on 10 toes. Looking at my bands went off. Wonder where my friends all go. Scared to give my heart to this girl, paranoid she gon' leave if my hands get locked. Knowing that this game to be played, but I'm knowing that this game to be changed. I should be afraid of afraid. I'm just trying to live up to the man on my name. I'm just trying to live up to the niggas in my gang. I'm just trying to live up to my moment on the stage. I'm just trying to live up to the truth of my pain and the power that it gave me on the youth for today. I put a coupe in the safe, and I shoot from the waist. My time is money, and I ain't got a second for you flukes in your face.
How do you do my walls? How do you do my niggas? How do you do my brother? How do you do my niggas? How do you do my walls? How do you do my niggas? How do you do my brother? How do you do my niggas?
Turn up in this motherfucker, man. Peace to the fam. Who in the building? What up, though? Be smooth, I see you, fam. He said, let's get He said, let's get it. We ready for it. Salute to everybody. We'll be in the spot. What he say? We will be in the spot. Love to the tribe. I got my people with me. Yeah, in the real way. Turn up Phil J508. I see you, family. Lorenzo D228 in there. Ho, Scotty Saturn. Scotty Too Hotty. What up, though? Goddamn TP2 Live in there, ho. I see you, family. Warfare K. Yeah, it's about to get real in there, ho, man. Justin Weathers, I'm born here. What up, OG? Magnetic Minds in the building. Tenor Red. What up, though? I see you. Wild Indian Dunn. Reginald Adams. Yeah, sir. D. Hay. Wolf Creative. What's up with it, Wolf? Yeah, man, we about to go in one time. Just got to get my hands wrapped. Ohio player, I see you, family. Macadon, Louisiana in the building. Sylvia Love Zone, Oklahoma, I see you. Got the Oklahoma family in here. American Indian Star Strike. No, Detroit in the building. We got the D in the building. Yeah, sir. What's up with it, Freeman? Fred 9455, the profession, I see you. He said, pull it up. OG, Big Cherry and Hockey, not away, Chief in this bitch. What's up with it, OG Donald Grant? I see you, Token Turtle just pulled up. He said, what happening in the real way, man? We gonna get in there then, goddamn. Yeah, man, I ain't gonna hold y'all too long. Yeah, man, you know, I had went on a little vacay, man, stepped away from the game. And, you know, I came back, man. I didn't want to just jump right in. So, I got 3 projects that I'm working on. Y'all already know what time it is on the Mayan and African American connection. We got that next week. Also got the Deontay Wilder. We got a nice piece coming up on Deontay Wilder. He about to take on Tyson Fury. And we're gonna go in deep, man. A lot of indigenous history right there. And you know, this bill right here, man, was just something I wanted to stay sharp, you know what I'm saying? Just stay in the gym, stay active, and you know, we can hopefully we got some news we can use. EJ Capitone in the building. What up, though? D Hayden in there, ho. All right, let me share my screen. Goddamn, we can go in. Hey, we over on Legendary Topcast on YouTube, man. If y'all want to see some of the sources, man, we gonna run through. We got a lecture today, and the lecture is called how European royal bloodlines hijacked America from the Indians. Let me shut my screen, goddamn. Let's go in. Hey, y'all drop some flames down there, goddamn. Let's go and get busy. Yeah, sure, man. We in Manhattan, man. Hold on, let me see something real quick. Let me see it. Hold on, let me do something. Whoa. All right, we're going to do it like this here. All right. So we're going to do it like this here, man. We're in Jersey, man. Dutch West Indies Company, man. So as we know, as the colonies are being set up, we have different European families coming over to America. And when they get here, it's people here. One of the biggest things, you know, they wanted to come over here was to acquire a trade. And we'll see the business, and through these interactions of the business, we'll see certain business deals go wrong. We'll say it like that, you feel me? So we'll start with the Dutch West Indies Company. They came 1621 and 1664. All right, the Dutch possessed New Netherlands between the Connecticut and Delaware rivers for over 40 years. The settlement started in 1609 when the Dutch East Indies Company sent out Henry Hudson, an English navigator, to look to a route to the Indies not controlled by Spain. You feel me? And so they end up over here, and they got the Hudson River today. You know, you got certain businesses like Saks Fifth. You got Saks Fifth, and out there, these families still own these large companies and shit today. A lot of what they call grocery store chains or whatever, you know, your Popular, your Kroger's, your your Roundos, and so on and so forth. You feel me? These big families still own a lot of these major companies that a lot of people are still shopping with today. You feel me? Manhattan to Manhattan, Native Americans in Lower Manhattan. So you had tribes there, the Lenni Lenape in Manhattan, now called Manhattan. Prior to European contact, the word Lenape means the people in their language. The Lenape spoken the Algonquin language, one of many families of the language in North America. You feel me? And so these are the people that they end up bumping into. Also, you had a powerful nation on this East Coast, in this New York area, in these top of these, what they're considered the colonies. And in 1610, 1614, the Dutch established a series of seasonal trading posts on the Hudson and Delaware rivers, include one on Castle Island on the eastern edge of Mohawk territory near Albany. This gave the Iroquois direct access to European markets via the Mohawks. So the Mohawks go and get a relationship with the Dutch, with this Dutch company that comes over. The Dutch trading efforts and eventual colonies in New Jersey and Delaware soon also established trade with the coastal tribe Lenape and the more southerly Susquehannock tribe. The Dutch founded Fort Nassau in 1614 and 24, a replacement of Fort Orange, which removed the Iroquois' need to rely on the French and their allied tribes or travel through southern tribal territories to reach European traders. The Dutch supplied the Mohawk and other Iroquois with guns. In addition, this new post offered value tools that the Iroquois could receive in exchange for animal pelts. They began a large-scale hunting for furs to satisfy demand among their people for new products. And so now they had this relationship. They done got so cool that the nigga got guns. Nigga got guns. And now, let's walk. The Iroquois Confederacy, founded the Great Peacemaker in 1142, is the oldest living democracy on earth. In 1988, the U.S. Senate paid tribute to a resolution that said the confederation of the original 13 colonies into one republic was influenced by the political system developed by the Iroquois Confederacy, as were many of the democratic principles which were incorporated into the Constitution itself. The people of the Iroquois Confederacy, also known as the Six Nations, refer to themselves as the Haudenosaunee. It means people of the longhouse, and it refers to the lengthy bark-covered longhouses that house many families. Now, this Iroquois nation was five nations that ruled the top areas of what they're called the upper colonies. Now, through their relationships between the French, the Dutch, and these different European nations, battling for territory and more product, it'll start a war that was known as the Beaver Wars. Now, this also encompassed expansion because they didn't just want these areas. Now, they hearing about that good shit y'all got. When you go down and you make a left, you know what I'm saying? When you come through that hole and make a left, and then on the back corner, y'all got all this shit out here, but they trying to see what they got up there, man. And so it will come into the Beaver Wars, also known as the Iroquois Wars or the French and Iroquois Wars. It encompasses a series of conflicts fought intermittently during the 17th century in America. They were battles for economic warfare throughout the St. Lawrence River Valley in Canada and the Lower Great Lakes region, which pitted the Iroquois against the Northern Algonquins and the Algonquins' French allies. And so now we have a split, division here with the Algonquins and also with the Iroquois. These are really families, really cousins and shit. Them niggas just stay on the other side of the track. And now we'll see them go to war with each other. The Iroquois sought to expand their territory into the Ohio country and monopolize the fur trade with European markets. They originally were a confederacy of the Mohawk, Onondaga, the Cayuga, and the Seneca tribes, inhabiting the lands of upstate New York along the shores of Lake Ontario, east of Lake Champlain, and Lake George of the Hudson River, and the lower of the St. Lawrence River. The Iroquois Confederacy, led by the Mohawks, mobilized against the largely Algonquin-speaking tribes and Iroquois-speaking Huron and related tribes of the Great Lake region. The Iroquois were armed by their Dutch and English trade partners. The Algonquins or Hurons were backed by the French, their chief trading partners. And so it's up there, man. We're going to go through the Beaver Wars. The Beaver Wars, the beef will be squashed through a treaty called the Great Peace of Montreal. The Great Peace of Montreal, okay? The Grand Prix of Montreal was signed on August the 4th, 1701. It was signed as a symbolic peace between the French and 38 groups of the First Nations. The treaty stated that the First Nations would be neutral between the French and British during times of war. The Grand Prix de Montreal also said that the nations that signed the treaty would not fight with one another. The nations presented part of the Iroquois Confederacy, the Huron, and the Algonquin people. And so they're gonna squash the beef right here in the Treaty of Montreal. Also, what's gonna come up is the French and Indian War. The French and Indian War, which took place between 1754 and 1763, was a conflict between Great Britain and France over control over the Ohio River Valley. And so now the Beaver Wars will get them from the upstate New York over into this Ohio Valley region and the Great Lakes region, which opens up a gateway to many other opportunities for trade with other people that have a lot of things going on in the interior parts of America. Let's walk and talk. And so the French and Indian War would later become a global war when it spread into Europe in 1756, and nearly every European great power at the time joined in, which resulted in the 7 Years' War. Now, this is real important, man. Out of this war, it was either going to be the British or it was going to be the French. At this time, the Dutch is already falling. They're out of the picture now. And now the strongholds here, you have the French and you have the British. You have the Spanish down south, but they power is also diminishing. Let's walk and talk. Now, we'll see this interest. Now, where the British interest starts in this is on December the 6th, 1606, the journey to Virginia began on 3 ships, the Suzanne Constant, the Goodspeed, and Discovery. 1607, Englishmen and boys arrived in North America to start a settlement. On May 13th, they picked Jamestown, Virginia, for the settlement, which was named after their king, King James I. King James I was a black guy. He was Elizabeth I's cousin, which they initiated the colonies in Virginia. And so now we had the Virginia Company of London actually establishing the British interest in America by this black king. Where his grandson was King Charles II, who committed to expanding England's overseas possessions. His policies in 1660 through the 1680s established a supported restoration colonies. Okay, and so through King Charles, you would get the colonies of the Carolinas. You would also get New Jersey, New York, and Pennsylvania. All the restoration colonies started as purported colonies. That is, the king gave each colony a trusted individual, family, or a group. Okay, so a lot of these people were royal family that was getting these grants and these purporters were people who were close to these royal families back in Europe. I want y'all to pay close attention to this. We know it was 8 reporters who actually came to South Carolina to go set that up for King Charles II. Also, the Black King, he's known in history as the Black Boy King. All right, if y'all looking at the photo of him. All right, check it out. So we have to pay close attention to these people. Now, we know he had to be reinstated to the crown because he got ran off the block. And they end up gaining power back and bringing him back to the throne. But we have to remember that this is the family that's going to start up the colonies as far as the British interest. Let's walk and talk. In 1670, they established Charlestown, later Charleston, named in honor of Charles II. We're going to run it through there, man. We ain't going to have y'all here all day, goddamn. He go to grants right here. Governor Duke of York, Charter New York, and the State Archives of New York. Got the document description, the charter granted College of New York to James, Duke of York, from his brother King Charles II. England granted land that included present-day New York, New Jersey, most of Maine, parts of Connecticut, Pennsylvania to his brother James, Duke of York, later the King of England, the Charter of Royal Patent was awarded on March the 12th, 1664, and set up a purported colony. It gave James authority to send an armed force to compel the Dutch surrender of New Netherlands. Let's walk and talk. So that's how the Dutch end up losing their power. Now we're gonna go through the House of Burgesses. We're gonna have these different events take place through the colonies, and now they need a play to actually, because the British have moved in. We've been through the French and Indian Wars, and now they want one body, and so you get the Continental Congress. They walk and talk. From 1774 to 1789, the Continental Congress served as the government of 13 colonies and later the United States. The first Continental Congress, which was comprised of delegates from the colonies, met in 1774 in reaction of the Cohesive Acts, a series of measures imposed by the British government on the colonies in response to the residents to new taxes. 1775, the Second Continental Congress convened at the American Revolution after the American Revolution War had already begun in 1776. It took the momentum steps of declaring America's independence from Britain. 5 years later, the Congress ratified the National Constitution, the Articles of Confederation, under which the country will be governed until 1789. Man, y'all already popped that shit. So we had the first one, and in the first Continental Congress, they were more tied to Britain. They wasn't into no individual success or breaking out. And then we'll see the Second Continental Congress come with a lot of influence and Indian allies, powerful Indian allies. They would chose independence. One of those Indian allies that was instrumental in helping them put together this constitution and gaining their independence was a guy by the name of Conasauga. Conasauga in 1744, the Onondaga leader. Onondaga was one of those tribes of the Iroquois that we were speaking of. And so Onondaga leader Conasauga gave a speech urging the continuous 13 colonies to unite. As the Iroquois had at the signing of the Treaty of Lancaster, this cultural exchange inspired the English colonist Benjamin Franklin to print Conasauga's speech. We heartily recommend union and a good agreement between you, our brethren. Conasauga, he said, never disagree, but preserve a strict friendship for one another, and thereby you as well as we will become the stronger. Otherwise, forefathers established unions and amity between the 5 nations. This has made us formidable. This has given us great weight and authority with our neighboring nations. We are a powerful confederacy. And by observing the same methods of our wise forefathers have taken, you will acquire fresh strength and power. Therefore, whatever befalls you, never fall out with one another. Yeah, man, he ended that motherfucker. He say never fall out with one another. See, back then they were even understanding that loyalty bring royalty, man. And when people come together, man, it's easy for motherfuckers to come together. The hardest part of them staying together. The hardest part of them not falling out. The hardest part of them not being manipulated by a bad apple out of the goddamn crowd. Man, let walk and talk. He gave them some real news they can use, man. And in 1744, take you back, 1744, Conasauga served as a speaker at meetings to negotiate the Treaty of Lancaster. The first of the chiefs was a tall, well-made man, had a very full chest and brawny limbs. He had a manly continuance mixed with a good-natured smile. He was about 60 years of age, very active, strong, and surprisingly liveliness in his speech, which I observed the discord between Mr. Weiser and some of the Saxons. The treaty conference that represented the 5 of the Iroquois nations, except the Mohawk, the easternmost tribe, and the provinces of Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Virginia, which King George war underway, the British colonies needed to cultivate a good relationship with their Iroquois neighbors. Now, the success of them always was dependent on the nations here. And we see the French had a good run because the French had great allies. French had powerful allies. And so the British colonies needed to cultivate a good relationship with Iroquois neighbors who might otherwise become French allies. After a speech by Conasauga, officials from Maryland, Virginia agreed to pay the Iroquois for land in their colonies, although they believed that the Iroquois had no legitimate claim to those lands. Virginia got the better part of the deal. However, although Conasauga and other Iroquois leaders believed that they had sold only the Shenandoah Valley to Virginia, the official deed gave Virginia much more land than that. That'll be the Treaty of Lancaster. Okay? And Conasauga was murdered later for taking bribes that ceded land from these Indian tribes. And the guy that gave the United States the blueprint to how the Iroquois nation developed their government here in America. They took that model, and out of that model became the U.S. Constitution, as we see right here in H. Con Res 331. Okay, H. Con Res 331. Y'all can pull this article up. A concurrent resolution to acknowledge the contributions of the Iroquois Confederacy of Nations to the development of the United States Constitution. Okay, a lot of people out there maybe didn't know that the United States government is modeled after American Indian government. I mean, you call a damn president the commander in chief. I mean, how much more do you need to know? The goddamn president is the commander in chief. Yeah, this is the Indian goddamn nation. Let's turn up. One of the tribes that sided with them that was really instrumental in the success of these the colonies coming together was the Onondaga tribe. The Oneida tribe. Indian nation played a significant role in the Revolutionary War, siding with the colonists against the British, having fought valiantly in several key battles of the American War for Independence, including the Battle of Ransky, the Saratoga. The Onondaga nation became known as the United States' first allies. Okay, they would become known as the United States' first allies. Onondaga tribe nation's loyalty, courage, and sacrifice was formally recognized by the U.S. Congress in 1794 with the Treaty of Canandaigua and a document signed by President George Washington that affirmed the Onondaga tribe nation's right to oversee its affairs and lands without interference from any other government. Now, through this Continental Congress, let's walk and talk, because something real important gonna happen, which is going to set the stage for America. Now, at this time, while we're dealing with the 13 colonies, we got to understand what they call the Deep South. The Deep South, far as Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Florida, even. The colonies are not down in the Deep South yet. How they got down there is what we're gonna walk and talk. Now, two things happened, because if we go back early in the story, we would have in the 1660s where we'll have these Black European royal family, as far as the Stuart family, come over and set up the 13 colonies. Now, during this war, the defenders of the Stuart family back in Europe, the defenders of them will lose the war in Europe and be taken as prisoners, and a lot of them will be sent to Barbados, Jamaica, and over to the colonies in America. Let's walk and talk, man. It's finna get good. Hey, light this bitch up, man. Light this bitch up, nigga. We ain't been on there having about a week or two. Nigga don't get lazy, goddamn. Yeah, let's get active. Another leader in Georgia. Okay, hold on. We gonna walk through this. Revolutionary War. When the Revolutionary War erupted in 1775, John Stuart, a British superintendent of the South, planned to use Indian tribes in conjunction with English troops against the colonists. White encroaches at the Tennessee-North Carolina border of Watauga and the Holston Rivers, as well as delegations of Shawnee and other northern Indians urging to fight against the Americans, inspired the decision to aid the British. The Upper Cherokee planned three-pronged attacks on the intruders along North Carolina and Virginia frontiers. The Cherokee Middle Towns would attack North Carolina, while the Lower Towns would attack South Carolina and Georgia. The lower and middle settlements met with the limited success. In reaction to these attacks, General Charles Lee, commander of the Southern Continental Forces, urged a joint expedition known as the Cherokee Campaign of 1776 under Colonel Andrew Williamson. South Carolina troops moved against the lower towns and traveled northwest to join the North Carolina forces under General Griffith Ruther and devastating the middle valley of the towns. Virginia troops under Colonel Christian crushed the Overhill towns in present-day Tennessee. More than 50 Cherokee towns were destroyed in the summer of 1776. Listen, family, more than 50 Cherokee towns were destroyed in the summer of 1776, and the survivors were left without food and shelter. So when you hear the Revolutionary War and they're telling you that they fighting against British and for their independence, they ain't told you nothing about the Indians, right? Because see, what happened was the British would have Indian allies and this Continental Congress who were aligned with the Mohawks and these different other tribes who became powerful nations. And we would see the U.S., the colonists, and we would see the British aligned with American Indian tribes and fight it out. In history, they would call it the Revolutionary War. But when they speak on the war, they act like you ain't had nothing to do with it. I guarantee you, if your family have been in this country, if your family was in this country in 1776, then your family fought in the Revolutionary War. I have four different ancestors who records I have from fighting in the Revolutionary War, fighting on both sides. I had 3 on one side, and I had 1 fighting with the U.S. And actually got land patents from King George for his performance in the war. Yeah, turn up, man. So I just want y'all to run through that, but they destroyed 50 Cherokee towns, all right, in 1776 by itself. The Cherokee Campaign in 1776 also caused a schism between the old chiefs and young warriors. Why did it cause a breakage in the relationship between the old heads and the young heads? Man, let's walk and talk. See, this way it's gonna get good because come on, man, let's walk. Hey, bang the like button, goddamn, bang the cash out, goddamn. Don't just look at me. While the American Revolution brought independence to white North Carolinas, the region's Indians, including the Cherokee, were a conquered people. With the Treaty of Holston in 1791, the United States initiated the Civilization Program. With the Treaty of Holston in 1791, the United States initiated a civilization program aimed to assimilating the Cherokee people into the mainstream of American society. To a great extent, this meant the adaptation of agriculture. Consequently, with Indians living by means of farming, their huge hunting grounds would no longer be needed, and whites could easily acquire more Cherokee land. The Tellico Treaty, was signed in 1798, was a result of the movement in the settlers into Cherokee territory in western North Carolina. West of 1791 Holston Treaty line, the Tellico Treaty specified a line called the Meigs-Freeman line, was to be drawn from of the Great Iron or Smoky Mountain in southeasterly direction so as to elude settlers from Cherokee territory. Now, they created this line after the Treaty of Tellico. They created this imaginary line called the Freeman line. All right, you couldn't cross that motherfucker neither, okay? Now, this what was going down. That action. These are the results after the Revolutionary War. We're going to see a split between these Cherokee nations. So we see the Cherokees, we see a lot of these villages in the Carolinas and Tennessee get destroyed. Now, another event took place was the Sullivan Expedition. In 1779, the Sullivan Expedition, also known as the Sullivan-Clint Expedition, was an extended systematic military campaign conducted by the United States during the American Revolutionary War against loyalists and the 4 nations of the Hunter Sea, which sided with the British. So 4 of the 5 nations sided of the Iroquois actually sided with the British. So after the Revolutionary War, George Washington, they fucked up about it. So it's over with, you know, we squashed that shit, but he feel like them niggas got the best of them. And these were no bullshit niggas who got dying on them. These were some real square meaning niggas. So he put all his resources together and he want to look at this shit. He want to look at that shit, man, and it become known as the Sullivan Expedition. The campaign ordered and organized by George Washington and his staff was conducted chiefly in the lands of Iroquois Confederacy, also known as the Longhouse Confederacy, taking the war home to the enemy to break their morale. And the expedition was largely successful in that goal as they destroyed more than 40 Iroquois villages. They destroyed more than 40 Iroquois villages and stores of winter crop, breaking the power of the 6 nations. 1779. If you look up here, we have Kendall. This is an Indian village destroyed by the Sullivan Army in September. And they went around, we see him crushing these Indian neighborhoods. Y'all want to know how niggas lost power? Let's walk and talk. Otis and Ningo, man, they call it the Indian Castle. It's located near the junction of Castle Creek. All right, this was another town. They call this Indian Castle right here. This was the land. And man, this was one of the major spots for the Iroquois. And it was destroyed. It was destroyed during this expedition as well. This was this is ancient ancestral land right here. And yeah, they came in and really put the disrespect down. They broke up these nations, man. This was 1779. All of the nations, and they detribalized them. And so now you have this U.S. And they're about to go into statehood. And all of the tribes that didn't have their back during these wars, they will detribalize them, meaning they won't honor them as indigenous or sovereign people in these lands. And so they walk and talk. And so the story begins. So I want to take you back after the French and Indian War. One of the most powerful things that kind of set the scene for it was a proclamation in 1763, which was issued by King George III. It was on October the 7th in 63. It followed the Treaty of Paris, which formally ended the 7 Years' War that transformed French territory into North America, and North America to Great Britain. The proclamation forbade a settlement west of a line drawn along the Appalachian Mountains, which delineated an Indian reserve. And so the British couldn't come past the Appalachian Mountains after this agreement. Now, the 7 Year War was the First World War because they were fighting here, but they also were fighting overseas as well. And so they walk and talk. So now England can't get over, the British can't get across and go trade over there with these southern tribes over there called the Southeastern tribes. And that's where all the money was at. On June the 9th, 1739, the Privy Council of George II finalized the corporate charter for the province of Georgia. Yeah, let's get busy, man. The Royal Charter was granted to General James Oglethorpe on April 21st, 1732 for land lying between Savannah. Shout out to back for what's mine. Oglethorpe envisioned a colony which to serve haven English subjects who had been imprisoned for debt. Okay, and so this is where they're going. They have a prison reform, so they're gonna empty their jails and they're gonna be bringing a lot of these people over here. Also, it was a haven for people who were you know, a lot of these people were rich and royal bloods. They owned the castles in Ireland and Scotland over there. They were in the king's courts, in the royal courts. They had rank. They were barons, baronets, and you know, they were dukes and bosses in their own right. Well, Oglethorpe get this colony. He started bringing them over. These defenders of the Stuart family, this royal family who set up the colonies, they would become known as Jacobites in history. Jacobites in history. Well, a lot of these Jacobites, Scottish Highlanders, who they would come over here and be accredited to bringing the Scottish Rite Freemasonry. They were settled in Savannah, Georgia, which is an old town, Pontino. This is where the gold was at. So they were very strategic in when they went, and they also had allies who assisted them on this. I ain't gonna go too deep on that, but let's walk and talk, man. Between the 1700s and early 1800s, many southeastern Indians intermingled by marriage with Celtic traders of Irish and Scottish Irish ancestry and became mixed blood members of Indian nations. The Celtic traders who contracted by English subjects loyal to the crown became a proclamation of 1736 prohibited the English from crossing the Appalachians. Okay, now that 36 treaty, they can't cross the Appalachians. Therefore, Scottish Irish traders came in contact with Indian people and married their maidens. By the early 1800s, these mixed bloods became the leaders. By the 1800s, these mixed bloods became the leaders of the Creek, Chickasaw, Cherokee tribes of the Southeast. Alexander McGivery became chief of the Creek Nation. John Wise Jr. and John Ross became chief of the Cherokee Nation. George and Levi Cober became chiefs of the Chickasaw Nation. Many of these mixed Indians people were eventually forced into hiding and denial of their Indian ancestry because of the fear of removal by the West of the United States government, movement to the West by the United States government. Dozens, scores, maybe hundreds of Scots, mostly Highlanders and Islanders, with some uplanders, lowlanders, and borders lived and traded with the Indians of the old Southwest, that part of the USA now known as the American Southeast. There are also traders and agents who were English, Irish, Welsh, German, and even Huguenot French. But there were far fewer in comparison to the number of Scots. During the French and Indian War of 1754 and 63, the British colonial administration decided it needed a centralize all forms of relationships with Indian nations and tribes under a single umbrella. So it's too many of them niggas, they needed to round it down and you know what I mean? It's too many. They don't need to deal with everybody. I need to deal with one nigga. Pay attention. We finna walk this bitch down. To some extent, that worked out to some, by the eve of the revolution, trade responsibilities had returned to the individual provinces while the Indian Department was in charge of political relations. Initially, the Department of Indian Affairs was divided into two districts, northern and southern, divided by the Ohio River. From its opening in January 1756 until 1764, activities of each were conducted by a superintendent with one assistant. In 1764, the Governor General authorized each superintendent to appoint permanent resident agents among the tribes called commissaries, each with an interpreter and clerk. The Southern District, the commissary for each major tribe, Cherokee, Creek, Choctaw, Chickasaw, plus one for the small tribes of the lower Mississippi, Biloxi, the Homer, the Takaba, the Bayugala, the Tunica, Appalachia, the Abaya. John Stewart, superintendent since 1762, handled relations with fifth major tribe, the Catawba, out of his Charleston, South Carolina headquarters. The Seminole were counted among the Creek. The province of Virginia maintained authority over the Indian tribes within its boundaries. In 1766, the General authorized deputy superintendents in both districts, 3 from the northern and for the southern. Stewart appointed Alexander Cameron, commissary to the Cherokee, as deputy superintendent over relationships to the Catawba, Cherokee, and Creek, and his cousin, Charles Stewart, Notice we got these stewards. They coming out of South Carolina with his Stewart family, sent over 8 reporters. Coming out of these were royal families that were sitting at the table with the kings who were exiled, and we will see their bloodline, and they still will be running, and these will become superintendents and instrumental in putting together what will become known as a agency to better deal with the Indians. So let's walk and talk, man. So they setting it up. They didn't when they got their cousin, baby mama, uncle, little brother, everybody got a job over there. His side bitch, little boy, he working the door, all type of shit. So those who served with the British Indian Department during the Revolution, with the exception of John and Henry Stewart, did not just as a mere administration, but often as active combatants and commanders. Noble Scottish traders, agents, and refugees among the Cherokee and other tribes of the Southwest, now the Southeast. While in Southern theater during the Revolution, nearly all Scottish Highlanders, listen, nearly all Scottish Highlanders and their descendants were loyalists. All of these niggas were loyalists. So when you hear the stories of the British loyalists, let me show you something. Yeah, nigga be popping their shit. See, because in the story, they're going to tell you that you got the loyalists. Where they was coming out of this area of the Carolinas and down in the Florida and these Georgia areas, remember? But in the 1700s, they're going to set up the colony of Georgia where these Highlanders going to come. This treaty going to come where the British can't come across the Appalachians. So guess what? They have to gain a relationship with these Scottish Highlanders. That's how the Highlanders, now watch how this shit gonna set up. The Highlanders who agree to this relationship with the British, they will become known in history as the Loyalists. But they tell you that Loyalists are black slaves that ran away. Now, when these people do come over here, a lot of these Highlanders come as what? Indentured servants. They tell you that these are African slaves running away and came to be loyal to the British. Bullshit. That's why all of them niggas got Scottish Highlander names. Yo, Alexander Cromwell's and all of this type. That's why all of these niggas got Highlander last names, my nigga. Don't let these niggas play with you. Now, out of this relationship, because they couldn't get over the moon, and now they have to fuck with each other on this trade agreement, right? These niggas become loyal, and that's a piece of the pie for them. And they also have a foot down in the South now. Now they have a base in the South where they can bounce back and forth. Now, one of the things that the Highlanders did also when they set up in Georgia, they had a rival to them in Florida, which was Spain. Spain and fuck with them niggas. So this is what's gonna happen. So the Spanish have a relationship with the Indians, and these niggas over here are gaining a relationship with the Indians. Now, for protection, they're going to go under. Now they're loyalists to British. So for protection, they're going to go under the protection from these other Indian tribes. They will go under the jurisdiction of the United States through treaties through the 1770s. That's why I give you the 83, 80, 86, 88, 91, and 94, and so on and so forth. Let's walk. Now, the Scottish Irish, hold on. The same was in the case in the North, at least in the beginning, but 3 Irish Protestants defected to Loyalist cause in 1778 and became prominent in Indian affairs. So these people who were Loyalists, they would become prominent in these Indian affairs. They would be used, especially when watching them create this. After 91, they created what they call the civilized plan. The civilized plan. So now these Highlanders, these these British agents, guess what? Now they will become a instrumental in this civilized plan. Let's walk and talk. In 1776, the Continental Congress organized its own Department of Indian Affairs, divided in northern and southern districts. All right, let's walk. Now, out of this will come some big steppers. Big steppers. Now, these Irish, you got to remember, these niggas were Protestant descent, too. These were Protestant Irish. They ain't fuck with Spain. Big steppers, man. One of them, man, we got John Van. He was a Scottish trader who lived among the Cherokee near what became Spring Place, Georgia, the site of the first Christian mission among the Cherokee built by the Moravian Brethren by a Cherokee woman and the father James Van, and later Cherokee water plantation owner. This nigga was a slave owner, a merchant. In order to be a slave trader, you need a boat, and a civic political leader who during his life was the richest man east of the Mississippi River of any ethnicity. Joseph Van went there and they raped grow up. His mama was a Cherokee and his daddy was European. His mama was a black woman from the South and his daddy was a European. And he became the richest nigga east of the Mississippi down there. Coming through this little program, man. You got John Walker Sr. He was a trader among the Cherokee after the Cherokee-American Wars ended, who became friends with General Andrew Jackson while serving under him during the Creek War of 1811-1813. He was already by then father of a future Creek leader. Okay, he was the father. John Walker Sr. would become the father of John Walker Jr., who later would become a Cherokee leader. How them Walkers get over there? These Scots, man. These niggas are Scottish Highlanders. These are Europeans, British agents who became loyalists to these motherfuckers. They became loyalists, and they end up being able to negotiate. See, they wasn't speaking for the Indians. They were speaking for themselves, and this is the way that they end up through their relationship is how they end up hijacking the sovereignty from these people down there. John White Sr., he was an Indian trader of Scottish descent among the Cherokee from about 1750, who became the official British interpreter with the Cherokee after the Anglo-Cherokee War, 1758 and 61. He married into the Paint clan, sister of the war leader and later political leader Doublehead, and the first beloved man of the Cherokee over hill towns. Old Tassel was murdered by settlers in 88. They had 6 children, whom one was John Watts Jr., who later a warrior and succeeded Dragon Canoe as leader on the later date. And John Watts Jr., he ended up signing one of those treaties that actually took that Cherokee nation under the jurisdiction of the United States. Yes, he did. He was Scots. He was Scots, bro. They were Europeans who were fighting back in Europe. These are royal families who were sitting at the thrones with, sit at the table with the Stuart kings, who also set up the 13 colonies. Man, let's walk and talk, man. Daniel Ross. Daniel Ross, he was a principal chief of the Cherokee Nation. He fathered the later principal chief of the Cherokee Nation. All right, Charles Stewart. He go to the Stewart family, and the Rosses, the Stewart clan. These are all clans that have the same bloodline. This is the same bloodline coming out of these European royal lines out there. He served as his first cousin. He served as his cousin John's first commissary to the small tribes on the Mississippi River, stationed in Mobile. Then became deputy superintendent and coordinated relations with the Choctaw, the Chickasaw, and small tribes, along serving as commissary to the Choctaw. Henry Stewart was the brother of John, chief deputy superintendent, based during the Revolution out of Mobile, then Pensacola, both in West Florida. How about John Stewart? Yeah, they just got a whole family affair. He was the lone survivor of Fort London Massacre in 58, which began the Anglo and Cherokee War. He fought currently with the French and Indian War, and of course was in response to the murder of a large number of Cherokee hostages at the British Fort Prince George near Cherokee towns, where they goddamn massacred them people. All right, this guy John Stewart, he was big shit, man. In that field, he would have been known in history as the best they ever did, and they got away with it. But this Stewart family, my nigga, is the same Stewart family bloodline that's gonna set up the 13 colonies, okay? British royalty. And these are the ones that would go down there with the companies. They would get the treaty signed by hook or crook, and they would get the land ceded. They would put together the militias that would go in and ultimately fight for them. They would cause the division and separate the tribes and have them fight back and forth, and also participate in slave raid. All right, let's walk. Bang the like button, bang the cash out, goddamn. Don't just look at me. It's election Sunday, goddamn. John McDonough, one of the most instrumental out of this situation was this guy John McDonough. The McDonough family, also a Scottish Royal Bloodline. Also, Jacobites, defenders of the Kings, and they also fought side by side with this royal family and was awarded when they came to America. Alexander Cameron's assistance at the outbreak of the revolution, he took up a post on the west bank of South Chickamauga Creek, where a branch of the Great Indian Warpath crossed, providing a link to Henry Stewart in Pensacola. Okay, so you got Pensacola down there. John McDonough gonna leave and he gonna go down there and start operating out of Florida. He was giving guns and all of these here. He had a store that the Cherokee used to hustle at, the Chickamauga. That's where this Confederate flag is gonna come through. So y'all see the Confederate flag and the Chickamauga flag is known as the Chickamauga flag. Well, this is the store that they was hustling at. Indian agent by the name of John McDaniel, and he provided the link to Henry Stewart, to this Stewart family. These all Jacobites, all Scottish Ireland. All right, now that site later became Branier Mission. After the first westward relocation of the militant Cherokee during the Revolution, Dragon Canute, their chief war leader, set up the base at the town and established his headquarters at the town of Chickamauga on the east bank of South Chickamauga Creek, across from McDonald's trade post and commissary. So they set up shop right across from this brother right here, and he ended up building a relationship with them. When John Stewart died and Thomas Brown became superintendent of Indian Affairs from the Atlantic District, while Cameron moved to Mississippi District, McDonald became his deputy superintendent to the Cherokee, based out of Cherokee town of Running Water and what is now Whiteside, Tennessee. Shout out to Whiteside, Tennessee. 1788, he and his deputy son-in-law, Daniel Rouse. His deputy son-in-law was a guy by the name of Daniel Rouse, who comes from the Rouse clan, who also was a Jacobite, brought over here as an indentured servant. Now walk and talk, man. It get deep. And so Daniel Rouse transferred operation to Turkeytown, Alabama, in order to get closer to the supply lines from now Spanish-held Pensacola, after he became the official Spanish agent to the Cherokee, as well as British superintendent of Indian Affairs for Southern District. When the Cherokee-American Wars ended in 1795, he moved to modern-day Rouseville, Georgia, and built what is known as John Rouse House, later moving to the former home of Chickamauga Creek. In 1887, he sold that land to the American Board of Missioners, where they established Bernard's Mission, which lasted until the Cherokee removal in 1838. His son, this Indian agent, his son will become principal chief of the Cherokee Nation for 40 years. Okay? Now, this is how they working. George Washington referred to this guy, Daniel Rouse, as the White Swan, because his effectiveness of moving around the Indians. Now they tied in. McDonald let Rouse marry his daughter. They had a baby that had John Rouse. That's the relationship they had John Rouse through. But they gave him ties to the land, and through that, that's how they'll start making the decisions that ultimately kicked us out. That's why we here today arguing with niggas. They tell me you ain't no Indian, all this type of shit here. They walk and talk. James Logan Colbert, another big stepper. He was a long-time trader living several decades among the Chickasaw, who was either born in Inverness or the Carolinas to someone born in Inverness. During the Revolution, he became a captain of the Department of Indian Affairs, Mississippi District, operated independently against the Spanish after the capture of the Lower Mississippi in autumn in 1779. At his death in 1784, he owned a huge plantation with 150 slaves. One of his 6 sons, 4 became leading headmen of the Chickasaw during the 18th and 19th centuries, while his 2 daughters married other headmen. Okay, and shout out to the Colberts, man. I got Colbert, and my Chickasaw line have Colbert. Okay, the Colberts came and took over this Chickasaw line. His sons Levi and them, they will later be instrumental in treaties that would be signed, actually ceding land. A lot of people out of Oklahoma, man, got their Colbert name too. A lot of people out of Oklahoma got their Colbert name, man. And they were huge plantation owners. And they did a lot of dirt to our people, man. These Indian agents. Now, John Stewart, the Barons, They was a baron. They were of royal descent. The first of them being Walter Stewart, son of Alexander Stewart, the Wolf of Benach, who was son of King Robert II. Walter was knighted for his valor at the Battle of Harlaw, and he and his descendants continued to hold their beautiful estates until 1661 when it was sold to the Gordons. The eighth baron also was named Walter. From him was descended of the Bailey, who was the son of Robert O.G., son of Robert, son of Walter. In the Bailey's veins there flowed not only royal blood, but also the blood of the chiefs of Grant, McIntosh, McGregor, and Cameron. And he and his first and second wives were by blood of marriage connected with almost every leading family within the Central Highlands. His father, whom find engaged in the continental trade. All right, and so we got this just showing this connection through this royal family. If we see some of the names, you got the McIntosh, you got the Grants, the McIntosh, the McGregors, and the Camerons. Who was this idiot? Who was this John McDaniel assistant? Alexander Cameron. All right, I just want to show you these families are still together. They all came over here. Now that's McGregor. Y'all know Conor McGregor, the white boy. See, they was black back then, though. Yeah, these people were black back then, though. Dang. Hold up. I probably gotta go get a charger. Ain't no charger with me. Hold up, give me 2 seconds. My phone about to die. All right, we're gonna run through a few more hitters. So, if we were seeing on the names right there. Hold up, y'all. Give me 2 seconds. Let me go get this charge. Look at my wrist. I got time today. Fucking up the line today. Yeah, my bad, y'all. YouTube family. I got a Clubhouse over here though, rocking with us. And yeah, so I gotta make sure they straight too. You feel me? So we gotta get the phone charged up over here for them, so we can make sure we stay rocking. Okay, turn up. We in there. All right. Now, some more big steppers who came out of this here situation was some more big steppers that came out of this was John McGilvery. All right, John McGilvery, he commanded a company and a militia working with the Chickasaw along the Mississippi during the Revolutionary War. At least between the time, then you had LaShawn McGilvery. He was a Scottish trader among the Creek who became the father of later Creek Alexander McGilvery, who led the pro-British faction of Lower Creeks during the American Revolution. Then you had John McIntosh. Remember these names that's coming from here. You got the McIntosh family. All right, let's walk. John McIntosh served as John Stewart commissary and later deputy superintendent to the Chickasaw from the late colonial times of the Revolutionary War. Now, the McIntoshes, we had the McIntoshes working with the Stewarts. The McIntoshes defended them at the Battle of Culloden and these different wars, Worcester and these different wars that took place in Europe, where eventually these Jacobites and these royal families were captured and taken as prisoners by the Protestants and some by the French. All right, let's walk. You got Roderick McIntosh. You got William McIntosh, who was a Scottish loyalist who moved from Savannah, Georgia to live amongst the Creek during the Revolution War and became David Tatt's assistant deputy among the Lower Creek towns. His son, also named William, became one of the leading men of the Creek Confederacy after the Revolution. And then we'll see his son, William McIntosh, later become the Creek chief and attempt to cede 23 million acres of Creek territory, Georgia and Alabama regions, to the United States. You got the Macklemore, who was a trader among the Cherokee at the time of the Anglo War, who became father of later Cherokee warrior and post-war leaders, John and Robert, that later who named the McGlory Cove in northern Walker County, Georgia. They got all our shit down there. They down there. Them niggas living it up. They got all that land and all that shit down there, man. Took it. Let's walk and talk. Augusta, Georgia would become a center for deerskin trade, but not before overcoming stiff competition from their South Carolina neighbors, such as the Winsdor store run by Morton Campbell and the Archibald McGivery Company. McGivery had taken in the other trade partners, but he remained solely in control. When McGivery retired in 1744, the Patrick Brown took over as director. He moved the company of Augusta to Augusta, Georgia, as Patrick Brown and Company. A new partner joined Brown in the 1740s. This was John Ray. John Ray and the firm became known as the Brown Ray Company. Listen, family, they became known as the Brown Ray Company. This company soon dominated the deerskin trade in the Southeast colonies. Among the traders from Brown Ray Company was LaShawn McGivery. Now watch this here. He was from Drumglass, Scotland. LaShawn was a kinsman. He was kinfolk to Archibald McGivery. LaShawn had come to Georgia in 1736, listen, family, as an indentured servant. LaShawn came to Georgia in 1736 as an indentured servant, and he worked for Brown and Ray Company, and they became so powerful that they felt they were law into themselves, and they were referred to as the gentlemen of Augustus. Okay, and they became so powerful, man. But LaShawn, when he came in, he was an indentured servant, but his kinfolk Archibald was plugged in like a lamp. Traders trading posts in the course of Native Americans trade with each other had to be licensed or work for a trading company with license. The license was issued to trade with particular tribal groups between 1751 and 54. There were 37 licensed traders with Creek Cherokee, 7 licensed traders with the Chickasaw, 2 licensed to trade with Choctaw, and 35 licensed to trade with the Creek people. And so they started giving out these licenses. Now you had to be somebody to have one of these licenses. They weren't giving them hoes to everybody. You feel me? Yeah, man, you're gonna have to be plugged in. And so this was niggas who was sitting at the table. And so here goes some of the names: James Beamer, John Bean, James Butler, John Carey, John Forbes, Nathan Gist, John McDonald, John McCartney, Henry Morris, James Spalding, A.B. White, James Hicks. You feel me? And these are just to name a few. LaShawn McGivery, this was the trader, right? Now, like I always be telling y'all, we be talking about Ancestry.com and motherfucking family search and shit, but there's so many other websites out there that do genealogy and that help people find their family. A lot of them are instrumented for Europe, the people that were taken out of Europe, which was well documented. And notice that people, when talk about the slave trade, always miss that part. They want to talk about this African shit, not even understanding all the damn black people that got sent up out of Europe, that we actually have records and boats on. Now, one of these sites is Bringing Home Our Ancestors, Reuniting Our Family, ISTG, okay, Bringing Home Our Ancestors. Now, the record above of 81 rebel prisoners in order to be transported on board to the Wakefield Captain Dose Beck commanded for South Carolina. So now they got a boat with 81 prisoners on there, and they're about to send it to South Carolina. This is April the 21st, 1716. Richard Gilder and Henry Tafford. And then we had they would go down as Jacobite Rebellion prisoners, 1745. And they were shipped on board to the Wakefield. Now, one of these people that was on that motherfucker was the McGilveries. You got LaShawn McGilvery. You have these McGilvery family. We would have went down a lot of these McIntoshes as well. A lot of them were brought over because they were defeated in the Jacobite War. Clan McIntosh. This is one of these clans we keep hearing about. During the Jacobite Rising of 1715, the McIntosh remained loyal to who? To the Stuart cause. McIntoshes remained loyal to Stuart cause. LaShawn McIntosh led 800 Klansmen in support of the Jacobites under his cousin McIntosh of Borlum. However, they were defeated at the Battle of Preston in 1715. After this, many Klansmen were transported to the Americas. General Ray report on the Highlands in 1724 estimated the combined clan strength of the McIntoshes and Farrisons at 800 men. Now, we'll see these McIntoshes remain loyal to this Stuart cause. And when we come up here, we got these McIntoshes who served as John Stewart's committee. Now you see these niggas, these McIntoshes and these Stewarts, they getting all of these connections still here. They walk and talk, man. Bang like but bang the cash app. I ain't come to play with you niggas, man. Turn up, goddamn. Hey, who is that? William McIntosh. This the McIntoshes we talking about. Now this is William McIntosh. He was also a loyalist. He was the son of Benjamin McIntosh, and who was famous for his part in 1715 Jacobite uprising in Scotland. Captain John McIntosh married Catherine McGilvery, and they brought William. All right, and William would have a son with a black woman down in the South, and they would have a son become William McIntosh, and he would become the chief of the the Creek. Together, the Lower Creek chiefs negotiated the Second Treaty of Indian Springs in 1825. This treaty provided for the cession of virtually all Creek land remaining in the state of Georgia in exchange for a payment of $200,000. A controversial article in the treaty provided additional payment to McIntosh. A controversial article in the treaty provided additional payment to McIntosh for the lands granted to him in the 1821 treaty. On February 12, 1825, only 6 chiefs, including McIntosh, signed the document. McIntosh's motives have since been debated. His supporters suggest that he acted pragmatically, believing that the Georgians' relentless demand for Creek land made it a loss inevitably. McIntosh was killed for his role in talking with the U.S., trying to negotiate these treaties with the U.S. McIntosh will leave some sons behind. These are the McIntosh descendants. McIntosh descendants removed with the Creek people in Indian Territory. His 2 sons served as Confederate officers during the American Civil War. 3 of his daughters, Rebecca, Delilah, and Catherine, moved to East Texas with their husbands, developing plantations there, and they became some of the biggest plantation owners out there. One of the daughters being one of the richest women in Texas at that time. Rebecca McIntosh Hawkins married again after her first husband died, and by 1860 was the wealthiest woman in Texas, owning 3 plantations with a total of 12,800 acres and 120 slaves. Bitch, how? Grab that hoe by her hair. One of them was Chili. Chili was a political leader of the Creek Nation. He was McIntosh's oldest son. All right. And half brother to Daniel McIntosh. Chili signed the Treaty of 1825. This was the Treaty of Indian Springs. But unlike his father, who negotiated the agreement, he was able to actually escape execution for having sold the tribe Georgia's land. So he escaped and he ended up making it down to Indian Territory. He escaped, but it wasn't over. He escaped, but it wasn't over. And here's a map of the McIntoshes in the United States now. From them being brought over, now look at how much of the United States these people populate. Yeah, is that real? You talking about colonization. Right here, man, this is coming out of the slave narratives. a folk history of slavery in the United States from interviews with former slaves. So they interviewed some former slaves up in Oklahoma, Indian Territory, and an 83-year-old lady by the name of Mary Grayson, coming out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. Shout out to Mary Grayson. And Miss Mary Grayson, she recorded, "I am what we call colored people." Hold on, I'm sorry. "I am what colored people call a native. That means that I didn't come into the Indian country from somewhere in the South, in the old South, after the war, like so many Negroes did, but I was born here in the old Creek Nation." Mama said she was born in the old Creek Nation. She ain't come from the South like a lot of them other niggas. She was already there. And my master was a Creek Indian that was 83 years old, so I am told. She said my mammy belonged to white people back in Alabama. When she was born down in southern part, I think, for she told me that after she was a sizable girl, that white people moved into the eastern part of Alabama where there was a lot of creeks. Some of the creeks was mixed up with the whites. Some of the creeks was mixed up with the whites. And some of the big men in the creeks who come to talk to their masters, almost all was white. At this time, her mom is telling her back in Alabama down there in an old home in the South before they had to move, most of these people that were coming in that were quote unquote leaders in this Creek Nation at this time had become white. She said, my white folks moved around a lot when I was a little girl, she told me. When I first heard talk about the war, the slaves were allowed to go and see one another sometimes, and often they were sent on errands several miles with a wagon on the horse. But pretty soon we were all kept home and nobody was allowed to come around and talk to us. But we heard about what was going on. The Macintosh men, the goddamn Macintosh again, huh? So mama say the Macintosh men got nearly everybody to side with them about the war. Who were the Macintosh men? These were the Macintosh men, okay? These were Willie boys. Willie boys are on the run because their daddy got killed for attempting to cede land, all of the land to the Creek Nations. And the oldest son is a part of it. So now they moved to Indian Territory and now they need protection. They need protection because a lot of people mad at them. So this is the time of the Civil War that Miss Mary Grayson is talking about. When she say the Macintosh men got everybody to side with them about the war, but we Negroes got word somehow that the Cherokees over back of Fort Gibson was not going to be in the war, and that they were some Union people over there who would help slaves to get away. But we children didn't know anything about what we heard our parents whispering about, and they would stop if they heard us listening. Most of the Creeks who lived in our part of the country, between the Arkansas and Vertiges, and some even on the Arkansas belonging to the lower Creek and sided with the South. But down below us, along the Canadian River, there were upper Creeks, and there were a good deal of talk about them going with the North. Some of the Negroes tried to get away and go down to them, but I don't know of any from our neighborhood that actually went with them. Some upper Creeks came into Cosca Bottoms talking around among the folks that were siding with the North. They were talking. They said for old man Gouge, who was a big man among the upper Creeks, his Indian name was Opathelahaya, and he got away into Kansas with a bunch of Creeks and Seminoles during the war. Well, McIntosh and them come back, and they were forged again. They were forged the name of the upper Creeks chiefs, and they were going to contract with the Confederate government. Now, the Confederate government, again, like I said, when we go back to this treaty, Well, the British could not cross over the Appalachians. So a lot of these Scottish Irish people had relationships with these Indians down there. So they felt as though they had sovereignty outside of the United States jurisdiction. Understand me? So they feel like they are outside the jurisdiction of the United States. They don't have to listen to them. They can claim Indian sovereignty. This is where they would take on the name of the Southerners. Now, who it would start off through is Chickamauga Cherokee, because Stan Wadey used to be Big Ridge, who was who also was the chief of the Cherokee. He would side with John McDonald now. John McDonald, this Indian agent who worked with the Stewart family down in Pensacola as well, he would stand with them, and he also would fight in the 1811 Creek Wars, where they fought against the Black Cherokee, the Black Creeks, and which would later become the Seminole Wars. Well, that's where you get the name Southerners from, because these people down in the South, these mixed race Indians, these Scottish, they will start to call themselves Southerners, and they will fly this Confederate flag. They will become the Southern states. That's where they try to get their sovereignty from, through their blood in relationship with the Indians. They walk and talk, man. One of these people, man, out of this famous Ross clan would be George Ross. He was an American politician. He was a signer of the Continental Association of the United States Declaration of Independence. Nigga signed the Declaration of Independence. This is how plugged in these people were. The person that made the flag, Elizabeth Ross, who they call Betsy Ross, huh? Betsy Ross, the Ross family, also they say created the American flag, the United States flag. That's how plugged in these people is. Another one of the famous ones that y'all might know, who also was out of this Scottish royal bloodline, Ross bloodline, was Araminta Ross, or better known to y'all as Harriet Tubman. Harriet Tubman, Araminta Ross. Araminta Ross, born Harriet Tubman, born Araminta Ross in Dorchester County, Maryland, escaped from slavery, but she would return 13 times to do what? To rescue her family and friends. She would return 13 times to rescue her family and friends. Well, if it's her family, guess who she's going to rescue? As we have been seeing throughout this whole bill, this Scottish relationship, where these royal families will protect each other and they will stay around each other to keep their position and their bloodline intact. Well, Harriet Tubman was no exception. She came from this powerful clan as well. And she would come back to free family and friends. This wasn't she wasn't freeing niggas she didn't know. No, she was freeing Rosses. She was freeing Stewarts. She was freeing these prominent families that was coming from there. Some of her best friends were, guess what? Scottish Highlanders, who also worked with the Anti-Slavery Society. Now, when we go into the Anti-Slavery Society, which was in Philadelphia, which was ran by people that was coming out of Dublin, Ireland. Dublin, Ireland. We see these Irish connections, and also with this Ross family, when they got up there, they started marrying into prominent German families, and we'll see the Quaker relationship. And I don't think I got to tell y'all that Araminta Ross was a Quaker herself. What she say? She loved her some Quakers. They walk and talk, man. Goddamn. No knock to her, but she was freeing family and friends. Royal bloodline, nigga. This Illuminati shit going on, nigga. Let's walk and talk, man. You got Daniel Ross and them, man. We look at the map over here. They came and put down them a play right here, Franklin County, Virginia. Took over that shit. The Cherokee Nation has been associated with the British since 1674 with the change of deerskin and other European trade goods. In 1712, they allied with British and sent 200 warriors against the Tuscarora Indians. During the French and Indian War, they were heavily recruited by the British to fight against the French. And one time, Cherokee Nation controlled 140,000 square miles of the southern Appalachians. Yeah, they came and took all of that shit. Now this Ross family, man, we gonna go through. Then we went through Daniel Ross. We seen him. His extracts. His name is in the list of 150 Jacobite prisoners taken by the French in October 1747, recorded by W. Smith at Lincoln, York, and Lancaster. Okay, and so he go to scroll. This is why I say the British shit is well documented. For a lot of the people that say the British took them into slavery and then documented, they are taking their own people into slavery and they're documenting. That's how we know that these people are actually black, because it actually says it on these niggas' records. Here go Daniel Ross. We got him right here. Where you gonna go up there? To Baltimore, Maryland, in the same area where the other Ross families, and you even have Araminta Ross, Harry Tubman, them. They were playing up there in the. Now watch this here. He gonna end up coming down into Tennessee as an agent, though. Come down there and become an agent. And so we also have him here. We got John Stewart on this motherfucker too. We got some Stewards on here, but he go Daniel Ross right here at number 3, or he's right here at number 42 on the 150 list. Ross, he was a servant, came over as indentured servant. He was 5'5", sandy hair. He was swarthy, and he was well made. And we see him come over as also as indentured servant, as we seen in McGilvery. And this is his son, John Ross. John Ross was born in Rossville, Georgia, in October the 3rd, 1790. As a young Ross, Jonathan Meigs sent young Ross on a mission to visit the Cherokee, who had migrated to what was living in Arkansas. He became Major Ridge and Colonel Andrew Jackson Army during the Red Stick War. And so we see the Scottish Highlanders start working with Andrew Jackson, who also was a Scottish Highlander, and who also brought down the Kentucky and Tennessee militias, which were full of Scottish Highlanders. Matter of fact, the Highlanders actually turned on his ass in the end because he didn't want to pay. And then, he was asking for more time. He told them, nigga, you only get only time served, nigga, is from when you fight. So if I say, if you got a 12-month contract with me, you need to be on the battlefield. All that time off the battlefield is like truck driving. You only get paid when the truck moving. As long as the truck sitting there, I don't give a fuck, you been sitting there 2 days, you don't get paid for that. So Jackson tried to tell them niggas they only get paid, they hours, they clock start running when they on the battlefield. Once we get out of the battlefield, that bitch stop. Yeah, man. And so a lot of them niggas end up saying, fuck you, nigga. I'm finna get away from this nigga before I kill him. Before I kill this bitch ass. All right, let's walk. Now, he served under them. He was on the Cherokee National Council, which had been taken over by the Cherokee Mixed Bloods. Let me run that back. He was on the Cherokee National Council, which had been taken over by the Cherokee Mixed Bloods. And in 1827, he was elected president of the Cherokee Constitutional Convention and was also elected Cherokee chief of the East of the Mississippi Cherokees that same year. The Cherokees in the West governed themselves and had their own chiefs. The political parties were supported by most full bloods, but the leaders were mixed bloods. Let me run that back. The political party was supported by most full bloods, but the leaders were mixed bloods. With some traditional learning, Ross himself was 1/8 Cherokee and 7/8 white. He could neither understand nor speak the Cherokee language. He would devote all his efforts to making the Indians believe that by following him, he could convince the United States to allow the Cherokee Indians to remain on their lands in Georgia. Now watch this shit here. So listen, bro, niggas never respected Cuz as they leader. No, this was some shit that they made up, bro. Just how they give you look up one day and Lee Merritt is the leader of African Americans. You're like, how the fuck that happened? Nigga wake up and Al Sharpton, yo, how the fuck that happened? Nigga, how the fuck you my motherfucking leader? It was the same game. Let's walk and talk. Now, the Removal Act passed by Congress in the conditions called the state of Georgia. Now, Ross, he actually wanted to hold out for more money and to be able to dictate the terms of migration. Now, when he's telling them, hey, I could probably hold out, probably get us a state, it's not for him. He even went to the Supreme Court. He even took shit to the Supreme Court. He was trying to get more money out of it for himself. And just like that treaty with McIntosh, we see it was a clause in the treaty for McIntosh where he would actually get extra incentives if he can get the deal to go through. Andrew Jackson, this is what he said, man. December the 8th, 1829, from President Andrew Jackson is, the southern tribes have mingled much with the whites and have made some progress in the arts of civilized life, have lately attempted to erect an independent government. Listen, man, what I'm saying, bro. They went down there. They had an Indian mama and a European daddy, a black mama and a European daddy. That's why all them white folks in the South, they go back into the 1800s, they family black. Ain't nowhere around it. They got black grandmas and ain't nowhere around it. Now, he said, Jackson said, in the southern tribes have mingled much with the whites and made some progress in the arts of civilized life. They have lately attempted to erect an independent government within the limits of Georgia and Alabama. They wanted Indian sovereignty. That's why your ass can't have sovereignty today, because these motherfuckers are out here claiming your sovereignty. Let's walk and talk. Now, these states claiming to be the only sovereign within their territories, extend their laws over the Indians. They want to be sovereign in these Indian territory and even extend their laws over the Indians, which included the later to call upon the United States for protection, right? So if they went down there and wanted they shit sovereign, what they had to make the deal was they couldn't whoop us. They wanted it, but they were some hoes. You hear me? They wanted it, but you niggas can fight. And so they needed protection, and so they went under the jurisdiction of the United States, and that's why Indian tribes are federally recognized. That's why they go to the Supreme Court. Jackson went on to say, it seems to me visionary to suppose that in this state of things, claims can be allowed on tracts of country on which they have neither dwelt nor made improvements, merely because they have seen them from the mountains or passed them in the chase. Jackson, the great Indian fighter of the Southeast, believed in the spoil system. The victor belongs the spoils of war. Jackson felt like the victor belongs to spoils of war. After the Treaty of Fort Jackson in 1814, on November the 22nd, 1816, Jackson laid claim to Celtic Cherokee Indian farmland on Milton Bluff in Lawrence County, Alabama. The land Jackson took had been formed by Irishman John Milton, who married Doublehead's youngest sister. Again, this Irishman married to this royal bloodline family of Indians. During the turbulent times in the early history of Southeastern United States, Celtic people who have always been somewhat rebellious freedom seekers migrated into the Indian homelands, mingled with native people, and married into their tribes. As federal government forced the Indian removal issue during the 1830 under Jackson administration, mixed blood Celtic Indians began moving from Cherokee Nation in Alabama, the Carolinas, Georgia, and Tennessee into Warrior Mountain or Freedom Hills in northern Alabama. The hills of mountain provided isolation and protection as long as they denied their Indian backgrounds. The Celtic Indians who were of dark complexion, would many times claim to be Black Dutch or Black Irish and deny their rightful Indian descent in order to stay in their Aboriginal lands. So after Indian Removal Act, a lot of them people didn't claim that they were Indian because in fear of being removed. A nigga would hate on you. And they would claim Black Irish or Black Dutch ancestry to stay in those areas. John Ross wanted the Cherokee to believe that he was in control over the removal situation and interfere with printing of the Cherokee tribal newspaper. The editor, Elias Boudinot, resigned on August 1st, 32, saying that in his opinion, the people needed to know the consequences of failing to move peacefully. The stance of the president and Congress had provided. John Ross, however, wanted to hold out for more money and also wanted the authority to dictate and head up the removal process. So, again, man, we see these niggas putting their interests before the interests of the people. Now, with while no one can sell what they do not own, Georgia had ceded lands to the United States, and the United States had agreed that in the return of the federal government will move all of the Indians off their land east of the Mississippi. In 1830, the Indian Removal Act was enacted. This became one of the most wicked chapters in American history, all to satisfy the Jackson expansion, driven by their lust for Indian lands, for gold and other resources. In retrospect, at least we can recognize the system uncontrolled the Cherokees under American leadership. We must recognize the part that the greed of John Ross also played. John Ross was 7/8 white and the protege of the U.S. War Department agent to the Cherokee. This nigga was a protege. Colonel J. Meigs, while Ross couldn't speak Cherokee language and he had to use interpreters, he had black interpreters. They ain't tell you that. Especially for his prayers. That's why even Big Ridge, his counterpart, they had black interpreters, both of them. One of the black interpreters died that same day they killed Ridge. It was some niggas laid in his bushes. And when he got to the 4-way stop sign, they popped out the bushes and murdered him. They killed him and his driver, which was a black Cherokee Indian. They walk and talk. While Ross couldn't speak Cherokee language, he used interpreters, especially for his prayers. And the rapid mixture of white traders and others with the Cherokee, both male and female, and the government policy of bringing Christianity to the Indians took its toll on tribal politics. To the white Christians of that time, all people who did not belong to the Christian belief were savage heathens and something less than free humans. This is where the concept of manifest destiny, a belief in white superiority, begins with the rationalized, the unprovoked taking of large areas of land. In the case of the American Indians, the policy continues to this day. See the 25 USC 334, 336, 345 through 346 and USC 1401. This right here came from another one of the treaty signers, man, John Ridge. This was actually Elijah Boudinot's Buck Wadey, the guy that I just talked about, Big Ridge, who got killed at the stop sign. Well, the same day he got killed, his son was killed that day too. John Ridge, who was another mixed race Cherokee who signed treaties that ceded land. Well, this is one of his statement that he made. And he go on to say, he said, Cherokee blood, if not destroyed, will win its course in the beings of fair complexion. Cherokee blood, if not destroyed, will win its course in beings of fair complexion. They wanted to turn the Cherokee fair-skinned. He said, who will read that their ancestors became civilized under the frowns of misfortune and the cause of their enemies. And he wasn't lying. He said the Cherokee blood, if not destroyed, will win in its course and being of fair complexions, who will read their ancestors became civilized under the frowns of misfortune and the cause of their enemies. Bars. That young nigga is spitting. That young nigga is spitting. Hey man, August 1861 New York Times. August 1861 New York Times, man, it was an article in the New York Times and it read, as the matter now stands, all those tribes that have united with Confederates will be treated as traitors by the United States government. The annuities and allowances of whatever nature will be stopped. Furthermore, the engagements which the United States government entered into them from the perpetual and peaceful occupancy of their territory are no longer obligatory on the United States, and they will be driven out of the territory. He say, you finna get your bitch ass up and get up out of here if you went over there fucking with them niggas. Because see, we gotta understand, man, they tell us they're around here talking about these wars like niggas ain't participate. So they bring up the Revolutionary War, but when you go in the Revolutionary War, ain't nothing but Indians fight. Ain't nobody fighting but Indians. Pull up, you go through the Revolutionary War, ain't nobody fighting with Indians. Man, there was so many wars here, bro. The Pequot, like it's so many wars here. Native Americans played a vital role in the history of the United States of America. During the unrest and upheaval of the Civil War, many Native Americans pledged their allegiance to the Union or Confederacy. The Native Americans assembled armies and participated in battles. Their loyalty was important as the Union and Confederacy recognized the Native American involvement could influence the war's outcome. 1830, Jackson had removed Native Americans from their lands in southern United States. Most tribes relocated in the Midwest in what is labeled Indian Territory, as they were promised by the government to be given land and to be considered nations of their own. While the Civil War broke out in 1861, the Union Confederacy realized that a strong alliance with the 5 civilized tribes would be a wise relationship to maintain. The Indians could bring men to fight, as well as show support for states' rights towards the governing system in Washington. Leaders such as John Ross, Stan Wadey were considered half-bloods by tribal standards, okay? Leaders like John Ross and Stan Wadey were considered half-bloods by tribal standards, which Moulton talks about in his work. John Ross, Cherokee chief, half-blood, had a parent who was full-blooded Indian, while the other parent was European descent. I told y'all, that's why a lot of you niggas talking about you got a white grandpa and an Indian grandma. Because that's what happened, nigga. Ain't no motherfucking Native Americans out of Georgia, nigga. You go through goddamn Mississippi, ain't nothing but nigga culture. So much nigga culture in the South, you can't get it up out of there. Bell black as motherfucking South is, you niggas are turning around and talking about the goddamn native. Them niggas cooking cornbread and collard greens down there, man. Gone with the bullshit. They spoke English and some European traits, but they were raised in Cherokee society with Cherokee traditions. However, their half-blood status may have affected the relationships within their tribes and impacted who supported their leadership. Their struggles as leaders in the Civil War. Their struggles as leaders in the Civil War with the breaking of alliances by the United States government and the constant battle of having to choose sides in a split nation were not just the struggles of Native American leaders at the time. Ross and Wadey were a part of white American. Ross and Wadey were a part of white American, and they shared sentiments from both sides. The Confederacy offered a trump card and proposed alliance with Native Americans. The promise to protect and stand up for the independence of Indian nations and to provide more broad-minded treaties with them than the United States had in the past. These two factors excited yet divided the 5 civilized tribes. And so now you got the mixed races, they want to go one way. You got the black Indians saying we ain't getting in that shit. And so you had these mixed races go sign a contract with the Confederacy in hopes they can maintain a sovereign government there and they can overthrow the Indians down in the South. And they come back with the Confederate army. However, within the growing support of the Confederacy from the Cherokee, Chickasaws, and Choctaw, those staying neutral were becoming more targeted. So you in that bitch sleep, and here come these niggas that rolled up. These niggas out there setting shit on fire, they screaming and hollering, they drunk off their whiskey. They chasing Big Mama and them out there. Confederate and came through there and they started trying to ride on all of the black Indians that was in these territories. They coming trying to burn down all of the neighborhoods. You got to understand something. They're having to maintain a balance of power with us and them. And then at the Civil War, they say, fuck this shit. They got an army behind them. They tried to rush us. But they couldn't fight. Nah, they couldn't fight. They probably can fight. They couldn't fuck with us because we tore their ass up. Nah, I ain't just talking. That's a fact. Let's walk. We tore their motherfucking ass up with a ragtag army. And they end up realizing, the Confederates say, damn, we done snuck up on them when it came at 3 a.m, woke nigga up out of bed, and these niggas still got on our ass. Yeah, them niggas with some fighting machines, goddamn. A lot of them end up going to Fort Gibson, like Mama Mary was saying earlier in the article, and they fought in the 1st and 2nd Infantry of the United States Colored Troops. Let's walk and talk. In a few months, the Confederate Indians had assembled an army. After the first action at Springfield, Missouri, Confederate Indians in the Creek and Cherokee decided to launch an attack on the neutrals camp. So all the black Indians said they ain't want nothing to do with it. They started rushing their camps. The Chickasaw in particular seemed to be tied closely with Confederacy and white Americans during this time. We showed y'all that Cobra family that would go in and end up hijacking their tribe. Ariel Gibson points out several reasons the closing of governmental institutions due to the war, blood ties to whites, and the presence of slaves. Gibson states that the Civil War upset most aspects of Chickasaw's national identity. Chickasaw hate niggas. They hate niggas still to this day. And the Chickasaw never been defeated. The Chickasaw never been defeated, man. A lot of the OGs, if y'all seen how whites hijacked the 5 civilized tribes, the Chickasaw version, y'all know I did a series on that. We had one with the Chickasaw. As you will see, a lot of the big homies in the Chickasaw, man, they were getting fucked up. They was on liquor, them niggas was smoking. And when they came in the age of, older age, where they leadership depended more on foundation, on building the nation and keeping everything afloat, actually getting currency and get some shit moving and being productive. Business-wise, they were soldiers. They weren't business-minded people. They was just soldiers. And in older age, man, they had started drinking it, man. A lot of younger people had more than what they had, man. And I remember one of the mixed races, he said, man, it's not that they are not warriors, but they couldn't put the goddamn bottle down. And if a nigga seeing you fucked up and drunk and in this low state every day, man, the youngsters not gonna respect it. That's like a smoker coming out there on the corner and trying to tell us what we about to do. Niggas ain't gonna respect it if they see you in that light, bro. Not to that extent, and that's what happened to a lot of the big homies that was in the Chickasaw. And we see the mixed races just straight take over. They fought all the wars. They did all the battling. They signed the treaties, whether it was with the British. The Chickasaw was working with the British and the U.S. That's how bad us some motherfuckers they was, bro. Whatever they wanted, they done it. All through Tennessee, through the Mississippi, whatever they wanted, they got it, bro. They was some bad motherfuckers. The Chickasaw, bro, never defeated. They put the Chickasaw up, who was the baddest coming out the South, out of the Mississippi. They put them up against the baddest coming out of the East Coast, which was the Iroquois. And they went ahead of fade. The Chickasaw, the baddest out the South, against the baddest coming out of the East Coast. And the Chickasaw faded that shit. And they had less of a population than a lot of them, bro. They never was the biggest. They never was the baddest, but everybody gonna fight. That's what made them different. And man, there was some gang banging shit going on back then. They fought against the Choctaw. Choctaw sided with the French, put them outside of their trade with them, and so they were freelance. They ain't let nothing come up to Mississippi. They jacked everything. Real square business niggas coming up out of there, man. Shout out to them Chickasaw. 1865, Civil War, General Stan Wadey of the Cherokee surrenders last. The Cherokee Chief Stan Wadey, this mixed race who they were just talking about, is the last Confederate general to surrender in the Civil War. Wadey's raid behind Union lines or distracted and delayed Union troops when they were badly needed a battle. The retributions in the U.S. punishes the Cherokee and people other tribes living in Indian territory known as Oklahoma by taking away land and doing away with all reservations in Indian territory, once again breaking earlier government agreements and treaties. 1835, Wadey and 3 other Cherokee leaders signed the Treaty of New Echota, surrendering Cherokee lands in Georgia and forcing the tribe to move westward to Indian territory, which is known as Oklahoma. 4 years later, 3 of the signers were assassinated by other Cherokees who opposed the New Echota Treaty. but Wadey escaped and remained the leader of minority who had favored the surrenders of the Cherokee land. And in 1865, he would be defeated by Black Cherokee, Black Creek, and Black Seminole Indians, who would defeat him in Oklahoma. And he would be the last Confederate soldier to surrender. And they flew that Confederate flag down there, these Southerners, this mixed race who became known as the Southerners. You ever wonder why the notorious KKK is called the Klan? According to Scottish veterinarian author Russell Lyons, it is because it started by a group of horse whisperers from Scotland. Lyons spent 5 years tracing the history of the secret societies, which originated in the 18th century, Scotland. 6 of these immigrated to the Americas and were recruited by the Confederate Army. After the war, they formed the Ku Klux Klan, which intimidated and killed Southern blacks. Now, the Klan came in 65 after this. You have to understand these mixed races had joined with the Confederates, with these people who had ties to the land down in the South through blood, and they wanted to create a sovereignty for themselves down there. That's why when they killed Lincoln, Johnson had the Confederates to create their own governments down there. Well, these people who were constructing these governments down there, they were doing it through their lineage and bloodline of sovereignty through the Indians. That was the only way of keeping the sovereignty down there. And so they wanted to get rid of us. So a lot of the people that own land down there, a lot of the Indians and shit that were instrumental, knew the lands and were dealing in commerce and shit. Well, these Highlanders put together a play which will offset that, and it will become known as the Ku Klux Klan. You know what? I'm gonna stop right there. I got a few more slides. You know what? We'll run through a few more. I ain't gonna do that. Hold up, y'all. I ain't gonna do that. Bang the like button, goddamn. Bang the cash app. This is pay-per-view material, goddamn. Hope y'all over at the BCU app. Hold on, we'll go and run through a few more. And so they create this Klan, and they start. The Klan was most effective in the South. Who was in the South? There was these Indian tribes down there in the South. Indian tribes who were these mixed races tried to rid them out through this Civil War, through their alliance with the Confederate. They wanted to rid out these people because the Black Indians in the South, we were staying neutral. Well, they knew one day that they would have to have a conversation about power with us, so they tried to get rid of us, and we end up ending the Civil War. We kicked all their ass. So they come back with a new political tool, which would be called the Ku Klux Klan. You know what? I am gonna stop right there. I am gonna stop right there. Goddamn. Hey, appreciate that love to everybody, goddamn, who pulled up. I ain't gonna hold y'all. You understand me? We're gonna be fast like flash, man. If you ain't over at the BCU, man, you need to get over there next week. We got the Mayans, the ancient Mayans and African American connection. We got the ancient Mayans and African American connection, man. You do not want to miss that motherfucker. We got 147 in the building, man. Hold on, man. Hey, man, appreciate all of the love. Y'all went stupid in the motherfucking cash app. As we speaking, somebody just sent another one, man. Y'all niggas went retarded in the motherfucking cash app, man. I love the shit out y'all. We got some big things coming up. Y'all be looking out on. We're gonna make the announcements. We're gonna be coming up with some announcements, but we're gonna get over to the BCU next week. We're gonna be over on the BCU app though, fucking with that ancient Mayans and African American connection. You dig what I mean? And so Hey, man, you can choose, lose, stay confused, man. As long as you got each other, we don't need no motherfucking body else, man. I love the shit out y'all, goddamn. Like I said, man, as long as you got each other, we don't need no motherfucking body else, man. Hold the motherfucking line, nigga. I love y'all. That's my motherfucking time. Best ever didn't got away with it. Deep! Legendary. Big Chief motherfucking Top Cat. That's my motherfucking time. I'm gone.
It's time and niggas gon' take it, hey. I'm having my way. Set out here having his way. Way out here having his way. And like the third me go out. Take it. What? Load up the Drake. What else are they gonna play? It's time and niggas gon' take it, hey. I'm having my way. Set out here having his way.
Two birds, what's up with it, man?
And like the third
Peter Jackson, Big Lord, I see you. TP2 Live, DJ Sell me the hoe. Yeah, what up, Rainstorm? Nari, Celtic Indian in the hoe. Goddamn Celtic, we ran through them Celtics today. Trey said in the hoe, Ishmael Bay, what up, huh? Kanye Soul, I see you, pretty girl. Georgia in the building. Hey. What's up with it, boy? I'm waving St. Louis in the building. Yeah, sir. Blazer. My nigga Blazer in there, bitch. Fire that shit up. Toy Meek even pulled up. I ain't seen his ass in a while.
Told myself that I would get through this verse and I'm not gonna mention the plane. But look at the plane.
Ancient History Hunter, we got the OG in the building. True King, EJ Cooper, Coppertone, Paul McGlory, I see you, homie. Yeah. Brother Lawrence in this bitch.
About to go link with the gang. Hey, I like that clock on the wall like your mama house. I do not have time to hang. Please don't reach out to me.
Born indigenous. He said they said all work easy work.
Playing pool in the pool just connects to the beach. I've been too solid to ever have stripes on my sneaks.
Yeah. Home of the Brave, what up though? Runners Johnson in the building.
That was back in the day.
Back in the day.
Involved in legitimate business, baby, we came a long way. Sometimes I hop on the road by myself and I listen to shit that you say. All of y'all have more followers and dollars, and that's why I cannot relate. No, what? Load up the Drake.
Carrie Bay, what up though? Sleepy Jack. Curtis Scott in the motherfucking Cash Out. Andre, Ronnie Johnson. Mikael Freeman.
Load up the Drake.
Mark, Eric, Baltimore. Yeah. Who said it?
Might have a little more on they plate. We having our way in 3 ways.
Patrick Gabriel in this bitch.
We having our way. Having that shit. Having my way in the city. Get put out your bridges, you talking to tripping. Go put on my crease on and they slip. Having my way now, this shit like a business. Load up the base, now I feel like a Ricky. She had it her way, now she out of her business. Get out.
Hey, these niggas still sending money, goddamn. Who was that?
No communication, no invitation, cut off circulation. Blue of the rebel, got it, this the matrix. Crosses all on my body, watch for second. I'm having gallery laughing, no talking.
Shout out to
ain't none of this average. I'm sniping the
Loshi. I hope I ain't messed her name up. She say for Lexa Clubhouse. Thanks for okay, they was dropping the cash apps on Clubhouse. Hey. Tino in the motherfucking cash out. Hey, Big Demon, what's cracking with it, cuzzo? Oklahoma in this bitch. Oklahoma crippin'. Oklahoma crippin' in this hoe.
I'm shoving this shit in their face.
They know that I'm having my way.
They know that I'm having my way. I was up 10 on the song with Dre. It's like an eviction notice when we dropping. Get up, cause niggas get moved out their space.
Hey,
what's going on? But fuck it, cause it's worth the wait. Not to be ignorant, but I want everything that's on the menu and what's on your plate. I try to God and give me the fame. I hit the boy if I need me a drink. I got a Richie that sit on my left, but somehow I always be pulling the blade.
Lotion, right back in the goddamn cash out. She just double back around. Donna, Wild Indian done in the motherfucking cash out.
Make them say church, when they see clarity, diamonds, the stones in my Jesus face. Ain't gotta run, cause it's not a race.
Load up the Drake. What else are they gonna play? It's high and niggas gon' take it. Hey,
I'm having my way.
Said I ain't having his way. Way I ain't having his way. And like the third me go out.
Y'all enjoy the rest of y'all night. We gone.